Chapter 71. The six giants bid at the same time, and there is. You are listening at novelful.audio. Ye Chen glanced at the comments and just shook his head. These days, the internet blows everything way out of proportion, one picture and suddenly it's a whole thing. Figuring he should get ahead of it, Ye Chen posted a quick explanation. Urine tests after every Bundesliga game are totally normal. Because I played well, Cologne's coach, Saul Bacon, singled me out. First time I've been tested in the Bundesliga, so it was kinda memorable. Test came back clean, sorry to disappoint the haters. Thanks to the fans who had my back. I'm good. Catch my next game, October 10th, second round of the DFB Pokal, home against Dynamo Dresden. That he finished the post with a couple photos of him and Lena watching a game. Seriously, she's talented and beautiful, and some eagle-eyed fans noticed she was rocking a Bayern jersey. Honestly, Ye Chen wasn't expecting that the surprise Lena had planned was a Bayern jersey. How could anyone resist that? 3 concerts in one night. With all the commotion online, Ye Chen's profile definitely got a boost, overshadowing the news about the Chinese Football Association's 3-year ban. Ye Chen decided to ignore it and let it blow over. Yang Kai-lai got what he wanted, while Ye Chen slept like a log, woke up early, and got to training. Games take a lot out of you, and Ye Chen's muscles were definitely sore the next day, but he was mostly recovered and could do some basic training. While taking a break after running 6 miles, Ye Chen grabbed his rewards from yesterday's game. First, the random task reward. He'd scored a hat trick at the last second, so the system automatically added 100 points. Adding the points for winning yesterday, Ye Chen was up to 265. That much closer to those Predator sneakers he was after. Second, the reward for winning the game. Because Cologne was a weaker team, the basic reward was still the bronze treasure chest, but since Ye Chen played so well, scoring 3 goals and an assist, the reward was doubled. Ye Chen got another silver chest. Open the silver treasure chest. Ding! Congratulations, you got an A-level skill card. Robin cut inside. Ye Chen froze. He thought he'd misheard, but it really was Robin's cut inside. System, are you sure Robin's cut inside is just A-level? The skill is A-level when you get it, but you can train to make it S-level, even SSS level. Ye Chen's face cleared. So, skills could be leveled up through training. That was news to him, but getting this skill. Ye Chen was seriously stoked. When he thought about Robin, one thing came to mind. Everyone knows he's gonna cut inside, but nobody can stop him. Some even called him the king of the cut inside. Once he entered his Robin corridor, he was unstoppable. It was almost like the fields in fantasy novels, and the game Ye Chen remembered most was the 2012-2013 Champions League final. Dortmund had basically given up on the league that season to focus on the Champions League. They fought their way to the final, where they'd face their rivals, Bayern Munich. With 88 minutes played, Dortmund was doing great, tied 1-1, then, in the 89th minute, Frank Ribery sent a long pass from the top of the box. The back heel hit Piszczek's right foot and bounced to Robin. His cut inside was like a knife to Dort's heart. Hummels and Sabotic's double team just became the backdrop for his legend. Robin finished with his left foot from 7 yards out, and the ball trickled into the net. In that game, Robin had blown a one-on-one chance, but his last cut inside made up for it. Robin's cut inside became the ultimate example of one-trick pony. So, why couldn't they defend against it even though they knew it was coming? 3 things: speed, dribbling, and shooting. It was like, while the defender was still processing the image, Robin was already past, pulled the trigger, bam. Ye Chen took a deep breath and opened his personal stats. His speed was already maxed out, so that couldn't be improved, but his dribbling had gone up by 5 points. Hey, system, why so stingy? Ye Chen complained. Fine, you can't boost my speed, but you couldn't even bump up my shooting. System skills are automatically adjusted to meet minimum requirements. The upgrade limit for an A-level skill card is 85. Ye Chen didn't really know how valuable those 5 points were. Putting it simply, it would take at least 6 months, maybe a year, of training to get those 5 points. The higher your stats, the harder it is to improve. Getting an automatic 5-point boost was huge. Ding ding ding. While Ye Chen was chatting with the system, his phone rang. He looked at the screen. "Boss? What's up? Where are you?" "Down by the lake in the neighborhood, out for a morning run." Ye Chen answered. "I'm at your gate, hurry home. Watska wants to see you." But when Ye Chen got back to the villa, he saw Klopp pacing back and forth. "Boss, what's the emergency? You're on fire." Klopp grabbed his arm, practically vibrating with excitement. "I know, right? I'm the Bundesliga's top scorer." Ye Chen said proudly. Klopp shook his head. "It's not just the Bundesliga, it's all of Europe. This morning alone, 6 big teams, including Real Madrid and Arsenal, made official offers. They all want you in the winter transfer window. That's sudden. And there's one team you'll be very interested in." "Manchester United?" Ye Chen guessed. "Yep. And they made the highest offer." Klopp grinned. "How much?" £60 million. Whoa. Ye Chen's jaw dropped. "You mean £60 million? You sure?" "60 million. Yep." Klopp nodded, grinning. "Old fox Ferguson said he didn't want you, but he's sure acting like he does." £60 million? Seriously? Neuer, when he transferred from Schalke 04 to Bayern, cost €18.5 million, which was around £15.7 million. In other words, one Ye Chen was worth 2 Neuers. Talk about a level up. Chapter 72. The €5 million termination fee is too insecure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The 2011 transfer market was a frenzy, with all the top 10 transfers being household names in soccer: Ibrahimovic, Aguero, Mata, Sanchez, Eto'o, Fabregas. If Ye Chen's transfer actually goes through, that £30 million price tag would put him at number 4 on the 2011 transfer list, only behind Aguero's €45 million, Pastor's €43 million, and Falcao's €40 million. Aguero, who Manchester City bid on, cost them £35 million plus a £3 million add-on, which means Aguero only cost £5 million more. Then what's being offered for Ye Chen? But what were Aguero's stats before he moved to Manchester City? In the 2010-2011 season, Aguero played 41 games for Atletico Madrid, scoring 27 goals and assisting 7. He was directly involved in 34 goals, and in the UEFA Super Cup final against Champions League defending champion Inter Milan, Aguero had a goal and an assist, helping his team win 2-0. And he only cost £35 million. Now Manchester United is offering £30 million for Ye Chen, who's only played 4 professional games. It's unbelievable. Ye Chen never expected his value to skyrocket this fast. It's insane. Even he was a little dazed by it all. Which begs the question, what does the manager want at this point? Does he want to cash in and let him transfer? Or is there something else going on? Full of these questions, Ye Chen got into Klopp's car and they drove towards Dortmund. "Yi, I think you need to get yourself a professional agent," Klopp told him as he drove. "A professional agent?" Klopp's words were like a wake-up call. As someone with a second shot at life, Ye Chen thought he could handle everything himself, so he'd never even considered finding an agent. But what happened last night definitely gave him the idea. To put it bluntly, if he had a team around him, he wouldn't have had to wait for Li Xinran to call him about those bogus doping rumors online. And he'll definitely have endorsement deals in the future, plus contract negotiations with the club. He can't do all that himself, right? That's not his area of expertise, and he's only just starting his professional career. He needs to focus on playing and training. Speaking of which, what's up with Lapong and Mendes? They're supposed to be the best agents in Europe. Haven't they seen his potential yet? They're slacking. He'll have to give them a piece of his mind later. Let's see how this plays out first. No rush, Ye Chen said after thinking for a minute. There are basically 2 stages to player transfers in Europe. First, the clubs have to agree on a price. Only when the club accepts the offer can they contact the player, technically, jumping the gun is against the rules, but it's not always strictly enforced. Before a lot of transfers, the club will contact the agent to gauge interest and discuss terms. The second stage is when the club can negotiate a contract with the player privately. If the player doesn't sign, the contract is off, until the original contract ends. The player can stay where he is, of course, if the club really doesn't want the player. They can negotiate a termination. If the player refuses to negotiate, the club can force a termination, but it will cost them more. Usually, you only get to that point if things get ugly. Being forced to terminate a contract is embarrassing for any player, just like what happened to Ye Chen. The kicker is that Ye Chen had an apprentice contract with Manchester United, so they only had to pay a measly £2,000 in compensation. For Manchester United, with all their money, £2,000 is nothing, but it left Ye Chen with a bitter taste in his mouth. Thinking about it now makes his blood boil. But right now, Ye Chen doesn't want to go anywhere. He really likes Dortmund. It's not just because he hasn't finished his mission yet, but also because he can't think of another team that would be a good fit for him. Choosing a team comes down to two things: the team style and their strength. As the reigning Bundesliga champions, Dortmund broke Bayern's stranglehold, so there's no question about their quality. And as for team style, Dortmund is arguably the best place for young players in Europe. They have a rule about signing players. They try to sign players under 23. Right now, the starting lineup includes Shinji Kagawa, the main left winger Perisic, and Lewandowski, who's been a beast this season, all 23 years old. And the main right winger, Götze, is only 19. He got bumped up to the first team last year when Kagawa got injured. At the time, Götze was only 18, plus, there's Gundogan at 22 and Sven Bender at 22, the whole Dortmund team is buzzing with youthful energy. It's that faith in young players that made Klopp give Ye Chen, at only 17, a chance when the team was in a bind. Another coach would probably only bring in young players in the 75th minute, but honestly, what can you prove in 10 minutes? And when your luck sucks, even that guaranteed goal card won't work. But now that there's a team making an offer, the team manager must be freaking out. After only 4 games, Ye Chen made the big boys willing to pay £30 million. What if he plays 10 or 20 games? Even without the crazy stats of 12 goals in 4 games, if he just scores 1 goal every 2 games, he could take Europe by storm. So Watzke couldn't wait to get Klopp to bring Ye Chen to his office to sign a contract with a release clause of at least €80 million. No way around it. A €50 million release clause is just too risky. Knock, knock, knock. Klopp knocked on the door. Come in. That when the door opened, Ye Chen froze for a second, then started laughing. Yep, here we go. He was just saying that Mendes and Raiola hadn't called, and bam, there they are. When they saw Klopp and Marvin Yi, the two of them jumped to their feet. Watzke grinned. Chen Yi, come in, let me introduce you. This is Mr. Raiola. Hi, sir. Ye Chen held out his hand. Hello. Le Pang beamed. I'm a player agent, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Ye Chen nodded. Looking forward to it too. And this is Mr. Mendes, Watzke continued. Mendes flashed his signature smile. Yi, hello. I've watched your 4 games and 1 practice, and you're incredible. I think you could be the best player in the world. Thank you, Mr. Mendes. Ye Chen smiled back. Jorge, you said the same thing to Ronaldo last time. Raiola grumbled, looks like the rivals have already started to squabble. Chapter 73. There is still a difference between dreams and wishful thinking. You are listening at novelful.audio. When it comes to football agents, Jorge Mendes and Mino Raiola are the undisputed champions. Mendes's ace in the hole is, without a doubt, Ronaldo. Thanks to Ronaldo's influence, about 80% of the Portuguese national team players are his clients, plus, the fiery Mourinho is also in Mendes' stable. In the original timeline, Tottenham fired Mourinho just 2 days before the League Cup final. Everyone figured Mourinho, flush with severance pay, would take a breather. But only 2 weeks later, he took the job in Rome and eventually snagged their first UEFA Cup since the revamp. This cemented Mourinho's place in history as the first coach to win the Champions League, Europa League, and UEFA Cup. Mendes's contacts, influence, and transfer strategies were instrumental in that move. Raiola's clients were no slouches either: the god Zlatan Ibrahimovic, the force of nature Erling Haaland, the showman Paul Pogba, the prodigy Gianluigi Donnarumma. The word on Raiola was simple: he was a player's best friend, but many of the big clubs dreaded dealing with him. He always fought tooth and nail for his players, and that meant he ruffled feathers with plenty of coaches, like Alex Ferguson, Pep Guardiola, and Jurgen Klopp, who would eventually coach Liverpool. Guardiola caught the worst of it, with Raiola flat out calling him a dog. But his players loved him for it, seeing him as a mentor and confidant. When Mario Balotelli's house went up in flames, his first call wasn't to the fire department, but to Raiola. To outsiders, Raiola didn't have Mendes' smooth touch, often getting into public spats with clubs, but that was precisely what made Raiola so effective. He knew who he worked for, and he knew who he was fighting for. So he didn't care about hurting anyone's feelings, as long as he got his clients the best possible deal. Raiola's catchphrase was, "Run as fast as you can, and I'll make you the best player in the world." If you're talking about Raiola's masterpiece, it has to be Pogba's return to Manchester United. In the summer of 2016, Pogba left Juventus and headed back to Manchester United. The transfer fee of €105 million broke records at the time. After the dust settled on the big money move, Juventus paid €25 million to Raiola, Manchester United paid €22 million, and Pogba himself chipped in another €2 million from his signing bonus. In total, Raiola pocketed a cool €49 million. That's what people mean when they say most agents get squeezed by clubs and make their money by squeezing players, but the top dogs squeeze the clubs and win alongside their players. Everyone walks away happy. However, their vastly different styles have led to dramatically different outcomes. Mendes brokered Ronaldo's move from Manchester United, leaving the team with a €96 million transfer fee. Even after the move, many fans still thought fondly of Ronaldo and continued to support him. On the other hand, although Donnarumma is raking it in over at Paris Saint-Germain, countless AC Milan fans loathe him. Same goes for Ibrahimovic. He often got ripped for being a mercenary who jumped from team to team. Ye Chen, being Chinese, had a deeply ingrained sense of harmony makes money. Even if he decided to leave Dortmund someday, he wanted to go out with his head held high. These were just Ye Chen's private thoughts, and he wasn't about to spill the beans. Having lived two lives, he wasn't about to hand over his career to a stranger, not unless they truly won him over. After a brief introduction, Watzke suggested that Raiola and Mendes each get 10 minutes alone with Ye Chen, and then Ye Chen could make his pick. Meanwhile, he had to hash out the offers from several big clubs with Klopp. "I'll go first." Raiola volunteered, believing in taking things one step at a time. "Okay, be my guest." Mendes said, playing the gentleman, but being a gentleman didn't mean he was throwing in the towel. He was determined to win this negotiation, because Mendes truly understood the mind-blowing power of the word China. Mendes would even go as far as to say that Ye Chen would have more influence in China than even Ronaldo. Of course, this only applied to China. No matter how famous Ronaldo was, he was still just Portuguese, but Ye Chen was Chinese. It's like the difference between Yao Ming and Kobe Bryant's impact in China. Kobe was a global icon, bigger than Yao Ming worldwide, but Yao Ming had an absolute stranglehold on China. In the room, Raiola looked at Ye Chen. "Before I tell you about myself, I want to get to know you." "Sure, go ahead," Ye Chen said with a slight smile. "Do you have a specific roadmap for your career?" "Absolutely." "Give me the highlights," Raiola said, ditching the small talk and pulling out a notebook he'd prepped beforehand. Ye Chen was sizing up an agent, and Raiola was auditioning a client. It was a two-way street. "First, I want to lead Dortmund to the Bundesliga title this year. Then, next year, we'll go for the Champions League. And I want to be the league's top scorer both seasons and the Champions League's top scorer next year." Ye Chen said calmly. "Are you sure you're talking about your plan?" Raiola's mouth twitched. "Aren't Chinese people supposed to be humble?" There's a difference between dreams and delusions. I think you should have faith in my abilities. Ye Chen replied just as coolly. 4 games and 12 goals gave him all the confidence he needed. Okay, after you win the Champions League with the team, would you be open to moving to another team? If so, is there a particular league or team that interests you? In Raiola's book, you always need to be thinking about the next transfer, so it was a question he needed answered ASAP, but Ye Chen had already lost interest in chatting. Raiola said with the team, not lead. The message was clear. Even if he won the Champions League, it was just a lucky break. Raiola had no idea that one simple phrase had just sealed his fate with Ye Chen. I don't think we need to talk anymore, Mr. Raiola. Ye Chen cut him off. Thanks for coming all the way to Dortmund, but let's end it here. Grown-ups know how to say no. Even if Ye Chen's body wasn't quite grown, his soul was. Raiola frowned, his round face scowling. Why? You need to ditch the boasting. Hard work is the real secret to success. Sure, you've had a good run this season, but winning the Bundesliga Golden Boot is a pipe dream. Other teams will start figuring you out, and things will get tougher. Scoring 20 goals will be a major challenge. Sure thing. Chapter 74 Mendes, don't lose your dignity as an ace agent for the China market. You are listening at novelful.audio. These guys always try to box Ye Chen in, telling him what he can and can't do, but Ye Chen defies expectations. Honestly, even he doesn't know his own limits. So why do these people think they can tell him what's possible and what isn't? That's why listening to Raiola was so irritating. Work with that guy. Why not just be his own agent? Even if it means making a little less money, it's not worth swallowing that kind of crap. Wow, that was quick, Mendes said, feigning surprise when he saw them emerge from the room, but inside, he was stoked. It was obvious Raiola had been given the boot. Jorge, I gotta tell you, this Chinese kid is arrogant and stuck up. He has zero vision for his future. A player like that is destined to fail. Raiola grumbled, his voice filled with certainty. He's 17 years old and he's already talking about winning the Bundesliga Golden Boot and the Champions League Golden Boot? You think that's realistic? Ye Chen stayed cool. He understood why Raiola was pissed. The guy flew all the way to Dortmund, waited in his office all morning, missing sleep, but they were at odds within minutes of talking, so it was understandable he'd be fuming. Mendes just grinned. Of course it's possible. Just because no one's done it before doesn't mean someone won't do it in the future. You're unbelievable. Raiola stared at Mendes, astonished. Is that how you used to brown-nose Ronaldo? Nah, I'm just telling it like it is. Mendes said with total confidence. Trust my gut, Ye is going to become the biggest superstar in soccer within the next decade. You're kidding me, right? I'd believe that about Ronaldo, he earned it. Raiola shot back. Mendes, don't throw away your rep as a top agent just to tap into the Chinese market. Mendes just shook his head. Before he'd actually seen Ye Chen play, he'd assumed he was there because of the Chinese market. Then, yesterday afternoon, he watched Dortmund play Cologne with his own eyes. The young guy tearing it up on the field, fighting tooth and nail to win, reminded him of someone. 17-year-old Ye Chen had shades of the young Ronaldo. They both had this relentless hunger for goals, and that final goal ignited a fire in Mendes. With Ronaldo at Real Madrid, Mendes desperately needed a new headliner. From the moment he saw Ye Chen, he knew he'd found his next big thing. You really think that highly of me? Absolutely. And I'm gonna show you how serious I am. Mendes said with a smile. Actually, I wasn't really planning on getting an agent, Ye Chen said with a shrug, as he pushed open the meeting room door. You still want to come in and talk? Of course. Let's do it. Mendes followed him inside, still smiling. Back in the room, Mendes reached into his bag, just like Raiola had done, and pulled out a contract. This is the contract I signed with Chris. Take a look, Mendes said to Ye Chen, grinning. Ye Chen paused, surprised. Isn't that, like, confidential? I don't think I should see that. Nah, it's perfect, because I'm gonna give you an identical contract, Mendes said, straight-faced. That first sentence really showed he was serious. Now Ye Chen was starting to get worked up. Did this guy just say what he thought he said? Give him the same contract he has with Ronaldo? Was this some kind of joke? Did he even know who Ronaldo was? One of the greatest to ever play the game. One of the two biggest names in soccer right now. Mendes was just pulling out all the stops, huh? Agents get 2.75% of salary, but a whopping 10% of commercial deals. Mendes controls all of Ronaldo's endorsements, so there's no room for negotiation here. He was being completely upfront. Could he know about his system? But he immediately dismissed the thought as ridiculous. It had to be personal charm. But Ye Chen genuinely wasn't planning on getting an agent, mostly because he wasn't planning on transferring. You can tell me what you're really thinking. Even if we don't work together, I can still give you some advice, Mendes said with a smile. I'm not moving, so I don't need an agent. Who told you agents only handle transfers? Mendes asked, surprised. Of course I know that. Handling endorsements is important too, Ye Chen replied, smiling, but Mendes shook his head again. Actually, endorsements aren't even the most critical part. There's a saying, leave it to the professionals, like dealing with the tax stuff in a transfer. Mendes wasn't just trying to sign him, he was giving him a lesson in soccer management. Plenty of players have run into trouble with taxes, including Neymar, Messi, and Ronaldo. This was something Ye Chen definitely cared about. Mendes was a gold medal agent for a reason. He was persuasive and had plenty of examples to back it up. 10 minutes flew by in the blink of an eye. Ye Chen's thinking started to shift. He decided to give Mendes a shot. Alright, so I'm not transferring, but the club probably wants to extend my contract. I'm willing to sign a short-term deal with you. If I'm happy with what you do, I'll consider a long-term partnership. Ye Chen finally said, honestly, the last few days have been a pain in the butt. Spending that time training hard and playing well was the most important thing. He only had one goal in mind, to score a hat-trick in the next German Cup game and break the Guinness World Record set by that Japanese player. Of course, he wasn't about to tell anyone that he wanted to score 4 or even 5 in a single game. That guy, Masashi Nakayama, scored 16 goals in 4 games. He only scored 12. Ye Chen was like that, he hated losing. Especially to these guys who've got it made. He wanted to show them what's what, so, he needed to dedicate himself to training and competing. Leave the rest to the pros, like Mendes said, leave it to the professionals. Mendes didn't hesitate. He stood up and held out his hand. Deal. They agreed to a 1-year contract, with a 3-month trial period. If either side wasn't satisfied, they could end the contract. Naturally, since it was a short-term deal, Mendes' commission was a bit higher, 5% on salary contracts and 10% on commercial deals. But every business deal would need Ye Chen's approval. After hashing out the details, Ye Chen signed the contract with Klopp and Watzke as witnesses. Soon, a Chinese name popped up on the website of Mendes' agency, Gestafiut. Congratulations to Chinese player Ye Chen for signing with Mendes. The news exploded, shaking the soccer world to its core. The hottest young striker in soccer was teaming up with the most successful agent in the game. It was a dream come true. Chapter 75. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With the contract signed, the Mendes operation was officially a go. The biggest soccer site was buzzing with posts about Ye Chen's potential transfer. Manchester United makes £30 million offer to Dortmund. Is genius Ye headed back to the theatre of dreams? Mourinho, Ye is the striker every coach wants. Real Madrid would love to have him. Barcelona chairman, the offer is about getting Messi some help, not just the Chinese market. Wenger says in interview, Ye is an exciting, talented player who's destined for success in England. And so on. In fact, 6 of the world's biggest clubs had submitted offers for Ye Chen. Manchester United's offer was the most attractive, while Bayern's was the lowest. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Arsenal, and Chelsea were all in at €30 million. The reason for this sudden interest from all these big clubs was simple. Kicker magazine's report, in Germany, and throughout European soccer, Kicker is a highly respected source. In a special in-depth report, they analyzed Ye Chen's skills, potential for future development, and marketability, concluding that he was poised to become Asia's next superstar. Meanwhile, Dortmund was trying to get Ye Chen to sign a new contract. Even the team owner got involved personally. This was Ye Chen's first time meeting him, but since the transfer negotiations were in Mendes's hands, all Ye Chen had to do was get back to training. Mendes had told him to ignore all the transfer speculation, focus on training, and let him handle the rest. Ye Chen was happy to do just that. The big clubs were like sharks sensing blood in the water. Whatever their motives, their interest was genuine, and Dortmund's front office was starting to pay attention to this young player who'd only been with the club for a month. Originally, Ye Chen had signed a future star contract with an annual salary of €1 million. At the time, the club thought this salary, on par with Götze's, showed their commitment to him. Most importantly, they'd agreed to all of Ye Chen's additional clauses, including a €5,000 bonus for being named to the Bundesliga's Team of the Month. Of course, when they negotiated, they never imagined Ye Chen would actually make the list. After all, the Bundesliga is full of top-tier talent. But this month, starting with the game against Augsburg and continuing through Werder Bremen and Cologne, Ye Chen had been named MVP 3 games in a row, scoring 3 hat-tricks and notching an assist. That €5,000 bonus was now a sure thing. Dortmund had 2 games left this month, a German Cup match against Dynamo Dresden and an away game against Stuttgart. With only 2 days between the games, Klopp planned to use a semi-reserve lineup for the German Cup and the starters against Stuttgart. Stuttgart was currently 5th in the league and a force to be reckoned with. In the current league standings, Bayern was firmly in first place. Ye Chen's incredible rise had propelled Dortmund back into second place. In third place was Dortmund's arch-rival, Schalke 04, led by striker Huntelaar. Number 4 was Hannover 96, who had beaten Dortmund 2-1 early in the season and just defeated Bayern 2-1 in the previous round. The upcoming matchday 11 game between Dortmund and Stuttgart was a highlight of the weekend, but at the Rudolf Harbig Stadium, Stuttgart's head coach, Ralf Hasenhüttl, was giving his players a serious look. He was showing them a clip of Ye Chen's post-match interview. After Taro Jono's aggressive comments, Ye Chen had replied, "5 in a row is better than 4 in a row, right?" And Hasenhüttl paused the video. "Did you all hear that clearly?" Hasenhüttl asked, gritting his teeth. He played it again. "Watch closely and remember this kid. He's the hottest new player in the Bundesliga right now. He's scored 4 hat-tricks in a row. He's good, but he wants to walk all over us and set a record in soccer history. Are you going to let him? Are you willing to be his stepping stone, his bragging rights?" Hasenhüttl's voice rose, his eyes staring intently at the players in front of him. They had been promoted to the Bundesliga last season and were still considered a new team. Even after a major overhaul, they were playing well this season, especially since October, when their form had really improved. On October 2nd, they defeated 1860 Munich 4-2 on the road. On October 16th, they drew Aachen 1-1 at home with a goal in stoppage time. In the last Bundesliga match, they beat Brunswick 2-0. The team was on the right track. Originally, Hasenhüttl had planned to forfeit the German Cup game against Dortmund, but after seeing that interview, he was furious. They might lose, but they weren't going to be the backdrop for Ye Chen's record. The players were equally fired up, shouting their agreement. "Of course not. Let's get him, boss. Let's show him what the Bundesliga is all about. Yeah. This isn't China, he can't just show off here." Hasenhüttl nodded. "I analyzed Ye Chen's last game with the coaching staff. It will be hard to beat Dortmund, but we can definitely contain Ye Chen. I'm calling this tactic Operation Stop Ye. Whatever his tactics are, we can't let him set that record." "Exactly, we're not going to be pushovers. Boss, whatever you want us to do." Seeing his players' enthusiasm, Hasenhüttl smiled. Ye Chen had scored 3 goals and assisted on another in the last game against Cologne. making him the focal point of Dortmund's attack. If they could neutralize Ye Chen, Dortmund's offense would be in trouble. And then, a soldier who doesn't want to be a general isn't a good soldier. What kind of coach doesn't want to win? Plus, cup competitions are notorious for upsets. Even the best European teams can slip up. He wanted to create a miracle at the Westfalenstadion. The thought of silencing Europe's most raucous stadium thrilled him. He kept this ambition to himself, using the players' anger toward Ye Chen to fuel their fighting spirit and devising a tactic similar to the one Chelsea used against Barcelona in the Champions League. Back at Dortmund's training ground, the players were also training hard. Klopp pulled Ye Chen aside. "Ye, I'm planning to make you the tactical focus in the next game." That since their opponent in the German Cup wasn't very strong, Klopp wanted to test out new tactics in advance. If it worked, Dortmund would set off a yellow storm in the Champions League in the second half of the season. What? Is there a problem? Klopp raised an eyebrow. No, boss. Ye Chen shook his head, his blood pumping. Ye Chen felt his blood was burning. Since coming to Dortmund, Ye Chen had taken one step at a time, from substitute in the first game to a starting role in the fourth, and now to the core of their tactics. He was improving every game. And he was going to keep improving. Chapter 76 Manchester United CEO regrets, now I will pick him up personally. You are listening at novelful.audio. Ye Chen was all in on his training. Finally, during a break, he got to open the golden treasure box he'd earned from the last game. He was supposed to grab it during morning drills, but Klopp had interrupted him. But hey, the rewards weren't doubled. Guess the system figured it was cool to start early. Staring at that golden chest in his mind, Ye Chen felt a rush. Let's be real, he was where he was today because of the attribute boosts from his skills. But was he strong now? Not really. Look at it this way. Tons of soccer players have speed, but only a few become superstars based on that alone. If Ye Chen wanted to become a soccer superstar, he needed skills. That's why he was hoping the system would give him some technical abilities. Alright, system, let's do this. Ye Chen took a deep breath. Open the golden treasure chest. Ding! Congratulations, you've unlocked the S-level skill, penalty expert. Ye Chen was floored. System, you serious? All rewards are random. Ye Chen's mouth twitched. Seriously? Kinda lame. He checked his attribute panel. Yep, no attribute boost. Wait a sec. Just as he was about to be bummed, he noticed his weaker foot went from 3 to 4. Could it be because penalty kicks use his left foot, so it got buffed? Everyone knows it's hard to improve your weaker foot. Here's the deal. Ye Chen's right foot could fire off a shot at 75 miles per hour, but his left foot maybe hit 50, tops. And it was tough to control the curve of the ball, so, he rarely used his weaker foot in games, but turns out, penalty expert leveled up his weaker foot. Sweet. Ye Chen was easy to please, so he took the win. Now, would Klopp let him take penalties? With penalty expert skills, nailing those kicks would be a piece of cake, right? What Ye Chen didn't know was that the penalty expert skill did more than just boost his mentality, it also improved his weaker foot. Mental toughness is invisible, but it matters. Why do English players choke during penalty shootouts in big tournaments? They get psyched out. It's like a curse. Hopefully Ye Chen wouldn't have that problem down the line, right? Back on the field, Ye Chen followed Klopp's instructions. Dortmund was switching to a new 4-3-3 formation for the next game, but whether it worked depended on Ye Chen's performance. At that moment, Klopp had no idea that his opponent, Ralf Ruth, was planning to lock down Ye Chen with 3 defensive midfielders. Their only order: stop Ye Chen at all costs. October 10th, the pre-match press conference for the second round of the German Cup. Klopp showed up as usual, but reporters who normally didn't care about the German Cup were all over it. The place was packed. No question, they were there because of Ye Chen's possible transfer. Mendes was killing it with the PR. Ye Chen didn't have to worry about contract renewals, he just had to train, but he was making a name for himself in European soccer. Rumor has it Mourinho wants to bring Ye to Real Madrid. True. I hear Mendes is pushing for the transfer. Klopp stayed cool. I've already talked to the front office, and they're planning to offer Marvin Ye an extension ASAP. Word is Manchester United upped their offer. Will Ye leave Dortmund and head back to Old Trafford? Can't say what the future holds, but not right now. Klopp said confidently, I chatted with Ye, and he's happy in Dortmund. Will this transfer drama affect Ye's role on the team? Will he start this game? Ye will start. Like I said, Dortmund's gonna do everything we can to help him break records. Klopp sounded serious. Meanwhile, Ralph Ruth looked at the reporters, feeling a little lost. Was Ye really that big a deal now? Dresden was a small town, and usually only a few local newspaper reporters showed up for Bundesliga 2 press conferences. But this German Cup match brought in a swarm of reporters. Dortmund's whole team will be trying to help Ye set a record. Gonna let them do it? Let me be clear, we're not pushovers. Ralph Ruth said, looking determined, I get the record thing, but they gotta beat us first. So, are you gonna use dirty tactics on Ye? Of course not. He's just a 17-year-old kid. Plus, he's no Messi or Ronaldo. We know how to handle him. Ralph Ruth said confidently, sure, Marvin Ye was good, but Ralph Ruth thought the hype was overblown. After a few days of focused training, Ralph Ross was more confident than ever. He was ready to surprise everyone at Westfalenstadion. After the press conferences, the internet exploded. Klopp, Ye's happy in Dortmund, he's not leaving. Ye's tactical role won't change. He's Dortmund's core player of the future. Dynamo Dresden coach, we know how to stop Ye. Ralph Ruth, you can try to break a record, but you gotta beat us first. He's no Messi or Ronaldo. And so on. As the clock ticked down, fans got hyped, especially Chinese fans. Sports Channel 5 isn't airing it tonight. Where are y'all watching? Game hasn't even started and I'm already nervous. Never watched the German Cup before, but now I'm so hyped. It's been 3 days since I last saw Ye play. I'm fiending. Jean Jun's doing a live broadcast on Penguin. He's Ye's biggest fan. Gotta play hard and shut up those reporters who were dissing him. Alarm set. Witnessing history at 2 a.m. Ye Chen, let's go. Let's go. The game hadn't even started, and fans around the world were ready for it. At a fancy hotel in Dortmund, 2 old guys were chatting. Ferguson grinned. You sure you want to bring him back this way, mate? David Gill nodded firmly. I'm the one who let him go, I'm the one who's gonna get him back. He'd gotten chewed out by the boss more than once about that. But then I won't have money to buy Van Persie. Ferguson said sadly, if only Glazer would give us more transfer money. Didn't you say you didn't need Van Persie if you had Ye? David Gill looked at his old friend, surprised. Can't a guy want both? Ferguson grinned. He'd thought Ye Chen was a scrub youth player and didn't hold back. Ferguson was famous for his temper in Europe, but now he was a talented scorer. After Manchester United got trashed 6-1 by Manchester City, Ferguson was ready to make a move. He wondered if things would have been different if he had started instead of Welbeck. Thinking about Welbeck missing 2 breakaways in a row made his heart hurt. If only he'd kept Ye from the start. Chapter 77 An ordinary game. Why did Manchester United, Paris Bayern coaches come? You are listening at novelfull.audio. October 10, 7 p.m. German time. The Hornets bus pulls into the Westfalenstadion's player tunnel. The fans outside are already going wild. The players disembark. Kagawa. Over here, Kagawa. Captain. This way. Hey, Super Mario. Ye's here. Ye's here. Ye, don't leave. Stay with the bumblebees. Stay, Ye. We love you. The moment Ye stepped off the bus, the fans went nuts. Ye Chen gave a thumbs up and followed the rest of the team into the tunnel. Every team has scouts who analyze potential transfers, evaluating their feasibility and future profitability from every angle. Manchester United was the first to make a move, with Ferguson bringing team manager David Gill, Paris, fresh off a massive spending spree, has also shown serious interest in Ye. Coach Camber said in an interview that the team had earmarked even more money than they spent on Pastore to snag Ye Chen. What does Paris need right now? Attention. They're not short on cash. Buying Pastore, dubbed Little Riquelme, was just the beginning. Ye Chen fits the bill perfectly. That's why they're making a public spectacle of it. Money's meant to be spent, sure, but it's really meant to be spent where everyone can see it. Of course, the implication is obvious. After all, Pastore cost Paris €43 million, which is €7 million less than Ye Chen's buyout clause. That's the fee to activate Ye Chen's release clause directly. Besides Manchester United and Paris, Bayern, Real Madrid, and Barcelona are all keeping a close eye. Barcelona's finances are surprisingly healthy, thanks to their stellar performance. Real Madrid, need I say more? Bayern, on the other hand, is being a bit more cautious. They lost the Bundesliga title last year and didn't do so hot in the Champions League, so they're playing catch-up. Mostly, they're surprised a 17-year-old kid costs so much. If Ye Chen signs with any team for €50 million, he'll shatter the record for the highest transfer fee for a player his age. Ye Chen was born to break records, it seems, but all that's a little ways off. There's still a while before the winter break, and the transfer rumors are just starting. But the real record-breaking moment is just around the corner. Meanwhile, Masashi Nakayama, a player from Sakura Country, is getting some attention online for a Guinness record. He scored 16 goals in 4 games, bagging 4 hat-tricks. It's officially registered in the Guinness Book of Records, and this year, fans are eager to witness history being made. The fans have piled into the stadium early, buzzing with anticipation. The players hit the field for warm-ups after changing. Dortmund isn't fielding its full starting lineup today. Langerak is in goal. The back four consists of Schmelzer, Hummels, Sabotic, and Piszczek. The midfield trio is Gundogan, Kyle, and Sven Bender. Grosskreutz is on the left, Götze on the right, and Ye Chen leads the line as the lone striker. Grosskreutz is a utility player, able to play in any position except center-back. Klopp initially considered starting Shinji Kagawa, but there's been some tension between him and Ye Chen lately. It started with Ye Chen taunting Tomoki Makino in the last game against Cologne. After the game, he even verbally insulted Makino. This stirred up controversy among Sakura Country fans. However, Ye Chen has his own fans in Sakura Country. They dug up Makino. Tomoki's pre-game comments and pointed out his dangerous fouls during the match. The two sides started arguing. Naturally, the argument escalated to historical issues. Some even started calling fans who liked Ye Chen lackeys of China. Because the incident caused such a stir in Sakura Country, Kagawa Shinji's agency issued a statement. The gist of it was, "Football is pure, let's not drag historical issues into it." They also emphasized that Kagawa and Ye Chen are close teammates who fight for the same goals. But Shinji Kagawa isn't playing today. He asked Klopp himself. After all, a Sakura Country player's record is on the line. Kagawa playing could have a very bad impact. Of course, Klopp said Shinji Kagawa needed to be ready for the next league game. This Dresden is just a Bundesliga team. Dortmund doesn't need to go all out. The fans erupted when they saw Ye Chen, 4 hat-tricks in a row, have won over the fans and piqued the interest of deep-pocketed clubs. Ye Chen spotted several fans holding up signs saying, "Chennai, don't leave Dortmund." Ye Chen applauded and focused on warming up. "Ye, just run, and I'll get the ball to you," Götze said with a grin, sitting next to Ye Chen. "Thanks. I'll get you an assist." "That would be awesome." Götze's smile widened. Assists are worth €3,000. As key players on the first team, they negotiate bonuses for goals and assists when they sign their contracts. After the warm-up, everyone returned to the locker room. Klopp gathered the players and said seriously, "Everyone knows Ye has a record to break, but the team's victory comes first. Run into open space, and if he's in a good position, pass him the ball. But if he's not, go for your own chances. Got it?" "Got it." "Ye, are you feeling good today?" "Absolutely." Ye Chen nodded. He'd checked his stats, and he was firing on all cylinders. He couldn't wait to get out there. While Klopp was encouraging the players, the fans were settling in, and that meant the celebrity game was on. First up on the camera was Lena in the family section. She was wearing a Dortmund jersey, but tied it at the waist to show off her killer figure. Next, Mendes appeared on the big screen, flanked by 3 uniformed Guinness Association employees. Soon, the cameras zeroed in on David Gill and Ferguson, but they weren't the only coaches present. Paris coach Camber and his assistant were there, along with Bayern coach Hanks. Bayern lost the league title last season, and coach Andrés Juncker was fired after only 2 months. Veteran coach Hanks stepped in, steering Bayern back on course. Dortmund's momentum is still strong, so they're resorting to the simplest, most brutal tactic. If you can't beat them, buy them. Of course, Bayern would later poach Götze, Hummels, and Lewandowski from Dortmund, and Dortmund hasn't won the league since. Chapter 78 Hiss, even the German coach is here, he still came to inspect Ye Chen. You are listening at novelful.audio. The stadium was buzzing with excitement. Among the visiting team's fans were a few familiar faces: Tomoki Makino, recently cut from Cologne, and Taro Jono, a reporter blacklisted by Dotra. They were there to witness Ye Chen fail to break the world record. The stage was set, and the stands were packed with coaches, retired football legends, and even some big names from the entertainment world. If Ye Chen couldn't pull off a hat-trick tonight, well, his reaction would be priceless. The hype for this game had swept across Europe. After all, someone was going for the world record, a huge deal in football. The director was having a blast scanning the crowd of over 80,000, spotting celebrities. The fans played along, shouting out names the moment they recognized someone. Love. 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 Wow, even the German national team coach is here. He must be scouting Götze and Gundogan. That the atmosphere was electric even before kickoff. As game time approached, the coaches and substitutes emerged from the tunnel. Players from both teams lined up at the entrance, waiting for the referee to lead them onto the field. Dortmund was sporting their signature yellow jerseys, while Dresden wore white for the away game. Ironically, Dresden's home jerseys were also yellow. The referee checked his watch and signaled for the teams to enter. The live camera focused on the players in the tunnel as the commentator announced their names. Leading the way is our captain, Kyle. Oohs and ahs. Hello everyone, welcome to Penguin Sports. I'm Jean June, your commentator for today's German Cup second-round match between Dortmund and Dresden. I'm joined by Jean Lu. Jean June's voice echoed across China through the internet. Jean Lu smiled. Good morning, everyone. We should have a lot of viewers today, right? Jean June nodded. We already have 40 million people online, and I expect that number to keep climbing as the game gets underway. After all, this is a massive moment for Ye Chen. Jean Lu sighed. I never thought I'd see a Chinese player tearing it up in the Bundesliga. This is the best thing that's happened to me in years. Isn't it the best thing that's happened to all Chinese fans? Jean June added emotionally. In the previous 4 rounds, Ye Chen started 3 as a sub and scored 4 consecutive hat-tricks, a total of 12 goals and 1 assist. That ties the record of 4 consecutive hat-tricks set by Masashi Nakayama of Sakura Country. Nakayama scored 16 goals in those 4 games, so the stats are slightly better. But if Ye Chen sets another world record in this game, Nakayama's Guinness World Record will be invalidated, and Ye Chen's name will be etched into the Guinness World Records. Jean Lu chuckled. I hope Ye Chen has a great game and breaks the record, but let's not put too much pressure on him. The Bundesliga isn't the J-League. 12 goals in 4 Bundesliga games is unheard of. Exactly, Director Jean. Let's hope Ye Chen stays healthy and keeps giving us thrilling Bundesliga matches. Jean June agreed enthusiastically. Hey, if he breaks the world record, does he have to give the old record back to the committee? Jean Lu asked jokingly. That would be awkward. No need. The committee hands out a brand new certificate to whoever breaks the record. I just saw 3 Guinness officials sitting next to Mendes, so I bet Ye Chen will get a fresh certificate today if he does it. Zhang Jun replied with a smile. Zhang Lu's expression turned serious. Even though they're a Bundesliga team, we can't underestimate Dresden. I hope Ye Chen plays with heart. He looked hopeful. Okay, Ye Chen is out on the field now. You can hear the cheers from the fans. Zhang Jun announced. Let's take a look at the starting lineups. On the field, Ye Chen followed his teammates. To be honest, he felt remarkably calm, but just before stepping onto the pitch, Ye Chen noticed the Dresden team staring him down. Breaking a record tonight wouldn't be easy. Ye Chen took a deep breath, and the system chimed in. Ding! Main task announced, lead Dortmund to defeat Dynamo Dresden by at least 3 goals. Successful completion awards a silver treasure chest. Ye Chen's expression faltered. This mission was different. Usually, a win was enough, but this required winning by a margin of at least 3 goals. But the reward was a silver treasure chest. That meant this would be tough. He'd wanted to score 5 goals before the game, but now getting 3 seemed challenging. Whatever, let's just focus on the game. The music started, and the players took their positions. Suddenly, the south stand erupted in fireworks. A massive tifo slowly unfurled. On the tifo, a handsome Chinese player was holding a Guinness World Record certificate. Chen Yi! Chen Yi! Chen Yi! The fans roared. Ye Chen, seeing a tifo for the first time, was stunned. Seeing himself in the painting, he felt his eyes welling up. He raised his hands, acknowledging the fans and applauding them. He would give it his all tonight. The Dresden players were a little rattled. Was this the nuclear weapon of Westfalenstadion? These massive tifos were known to put visiting teams under tremendous pressure, but they weren't cowards. So what if this is Westfalenstadion? If you want to break a Guinness World Record, you'll have to go through us. If you want a fight, you'll get one. The players spread out, taking their positions. Ye Chen stood in front of the ball, facing the German talent Mario Götze. The game was about to begin, and Ye Chen was ready to give it everything he had. He didn't get many chances to set a Guinness World Record. And, more importantly, he was breaking the record of a Sakura country player, so he had to try harder. Even though Ye Chen wasn't overly nationalistic, the word Sakura country always fired him up. It was a deep-seated thing. Let's do this. Chapter 79. Ye Chen's Aesthetics of Violence, stunned Ferguson. You are listening at novelful.audio. Beep. Ye Chen passed the ball to Götze and took off running. Götze then sent the ball back to Gundogan, but Dresden's players were already swarming Ye Chen as he ran forward. It was midfielder Salega and Arne Schultz, both products of Dortmund's youth program. They were closing in from both sides, cutting off Ye Chen's path. Back in the Penguin Sports broadcast booth, Zhang Jun was smiling. The game is officially underway, but we've already seen Ye Chen being dogged by 2 midfielders. Looks like breaking the record today is going to be tough. Zhang Lu nodded in agreement. If I were Dresden, I wouldn't let him get anywhere close to a Guinness record. Zhang Jun's smile faded. Last game against Cologne, he had 1 guy glued to him. This time, it's 2. Isn't that a little excessive? What can you do? He's capable of scoring 3 against Bundesliga teams while still playing in the Bundesliga. If they don't mark him, he'd probably score 5 or 6, Zhang Lu said, voicing Ralph Ruth's unspoken fears. Of course, you can't just count goals like that. Every game's different. Zhang Jun sighed. That's the problem. I've lived abroad. These guys are proud, they don't like outsiders showing them up on their own turf. Zhang Lu agreed. But let's be honest, for hat tricks already seemed impossible. I keep saying, the Bundesliga is way tougher than the J-League. So, don't let Nakayama Masashi's 89 goals fool you. Ye Chen's 12 goals were much harder to come by. But the Guinness Book of World Records doesn't care about any of that. Because of the advantage of scoring more goals, that world record still belongs to Masashi Nakayama. It's not like the Bundesliga scoring title, where there's no chance of a tie. That while Zhang Jun and Zhang Lu were chatting, Ye Chen realized something was off. Normally, you'd only assign one guy to shadow a player for the entire game, otherwise, your defensive formation gets messed up. If Ye Chen was drawing two defenders, someone on Dortmund had to be open, but Dresden was playing a 10-to-1 formation, only striker Porter was up front, and the rest of the team was parked back on defense. It was the superbus, amped up to 11. Besides Salega and Schultz who were shadowing him, midfielder Koch guarded the center, and wingers Fjör and Trojan dropped back to help defend. It was like a bus parked in front of the goal, and the two ticket inspectors were on the bus, looking for Ye Chen to check his ticket. Wherever Ye Chen went, they were right there. The fans saw it too and were speechless. Dresden was being so blatant about trying to stop Ye Chen from making history. This was an honor for Dortmund, and if Ye Chen broke the Guinness World Record, Dortmund would get the glory. So, the fans started chanting Ye Chen's name to cheer him on, but after 5 minutes of chanting, Ye Chen still didn't have a decent chance. At 2 minutes and 32 seconds, Ye Chen fell back to receive the ball, and Salega and Schultz were immediately on him. One stayed on his back, and the other was ready to stop any move he made. Just as Ye Chen was sidestepping Schultz, Salega slid in for a tackle. He wasn't going for the man, so even if he clipped Ye Chen, it wouldn't matter. Hey, contact is part of the game. Lying on the ground, Ye Chen knew their moves were practiced. One guy would step in, and the other would keep him from faking a move to get past. Simply put, Ye Chen wasn't getting anywhere today. On the sidelines, Klopp saw what was happening, but he was cool. He was watching to see how Ye Chen would handle it. Love, in the stands, watched Ye Chen with interest. Every star player faces this kind of defense. What sets them apart from the average player is how they solve it. Take Messi, for example. He's double-teamed every game, and usually deals with it by passing. Of course, that needs great passing skills and vision, plus teammates who are willing to hustle, but everyone's different. Ronaldo used to beat guys one-on-one at Manchester United. Then, when he went to La Liga, he relied on teamwork to break down defenses. Not far away, Ferguson looked interested. Alex, what do you think he should do? David Gill asked Ferguson. Ferguson pointed to Gundogan. Get the other players involved, or he can use himself as bait to get his teammates to score, breaking the opponent's spirit. But then he won't get his hat trick. Team glory trumps individual glory, Ferguson said. If he wastes chances when the team is behind, we might have to reconsider signing him. David Gill knew what his old friend meant. Soccer's a team sport, and it's wrong to focus on just one player. Look at Barcelona's dream team. People don't just talk about Messi, they also talk about Xavi and Iniesta. Then there was Real Madrid, who, in addition to Ronaldo, had Benzema and their three phenomenal midfielders. Soccer's never a one-man game. So, if he doesn't get the hat trick, we're out. Not necessarily, Ferguson said. But if he can't shake this level of pressure, he'll be dead in the water in the Premier League. No doubt, this was Ye Chen's audition. David Gill nodded. Looks like he's having some trouble right now. It's fine. Give him time, Ferguson said, relaxing and watching the game. Geniuses are geniuses because they see things differently. Ferguson didn't know how Ye Chen would do it, but he had a feeling he would. Lots of players get marked like this in soccer. But what's the best way to beat a double team? Pass the ball. But Ye Chen went for a simpler, more brutal approach. You guys want to follow me around? Fine, let's run. At the same time, as he passed Gundogan, he whispered, Ilkay, get the ball out wide more. Their wing defense isn't great. Get the wingbacks involved. Got it. Gundogan nodded. He's not the finished product yet, but his soccer IQ is really high. Even though Ye Chen was supposed to be the main threat, he'd managed to escape Rathbender's marking during training with some fancy footwork. But having two guys on you is way harder than one. To put it simply, if one guy screws up, the other won't. There's always someone to stop Ye Chen, so, time to switch positions. On Dortmund, both Götze and Grosskreutz can play forward, so, everyone saw Ye Chen sprinting left, then sprinting right. After a few rounds, Salega and Schultz were out of breath, but they still stuck to Ye Chen like glue. This tactic was designed to run through Ye Chen, but now that he was being marked, the attack stalled. 21 minutes in, and Dortmund still can't find a way through. Jean Jun said. Jean Lu nodded. Dortmund isn't playing their usual 4-2-3-1 today. They've gone with a 4-5-1. They must be trying out new tactics. I just saw Kagawa warming up on the sidelines. Klopp must see the problem, too. The problem is that Ye Chen hasn't scored yet. That's not a good sign. Jean Jun wasn't worried about the game itself, but that Ye Chen might not break the record. But as soon as he said that, Ye Chen got the ball. Ye Chen has the ball on the right side of the field, with Salega in front and Schultz waiting. There are defenders behind them. Dresden has parked the bus, and Dortmund can't get past it. On the field, Ye Chen switched to the right while Götze ran to the middle. Ye Chen took the ball, looked up, and charged at Salega and Schultz. First, he sprinted toward the end line, faking a cross. Götze instantly sprinted into the penalty area, along with Grosskreutz on the left and Kyle in midfield. Gundogan was waiting for the pass just outside the arc of the penalty area. But as Salega rushed at him, Ye Chen suddenly stopped and cut inside, toward the top of the box. Oh, no. Salega was caught off guard, and he saw Schultz sliding in for the tackle. This time, he was aiming for Ye Chen's feet even if he gave up a free kick. He couldn't let Ye Chen keep dribbling, but he still underestimated Ye Chen's speed and slid right past. The sudden change in pace threw them both off. Koch rushed in to help, but he just threw his body at the ball, sliding in like a maniac. Centre-back Bregli had been following Götze into the penalty area, but when he saw Ye Chen reach the top of the box, he abandoned Götze and ran at Ye Chen, but Ye Chen sidestepped. Creating space with Bregli while dodging Koch's slide, he then lifted his foot and volleyed the bottom of the ball. Oh! Instantly, the ball rocketed toward the goal. The fans jumped to their feet, their eyes wide. All 12 of Ye Chen's goals in the previous 4 games were scored with his right foot, but this long shot was with his left. A powerful curler. That thud was all the proof anyone needed. And that cut-in move was awfully familiar. In the stands, Hanks couldn't believe what he was seeing. If he hadn't seen the player wearing Dortmund's jersey, he would have sworn it was Robin. Everyone held their breath, watching the ball fly through the air. Ralph Ruth clasped his hands together on the bench. Please, God, don't let him score. Chapter 80 Ferguson, one must bring him back to Manchester United. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The stadium went dead silent. Everyone stared at the ball in the air, their breaths catching in their throats. Hessel, the goalie, is a towering 6 feet 1 inch with a wingspan that stretches nearly 6 feet 7 inches. He scrambled, limbs flailing, throwing himself into a full-out dive. His fingertips were inches from the ball. Then, swoosh, Ye Chen had put an insane inside curve on the ball, sending it spinning inward. Hessel was big and quick, but this shot was unstoppable. Hell, even Neuer couldn't have saved it. The instant the ball hit the back of the net, the place went absolutely nuts. Goal! The announcer screamed himself hoarse. An unbelievable wonder strike. He does it again. 5 games in a row. When the team was struggling, he stepped up. Tell me who scored that goal. Ye Chen. Ye Chen. Ye Chen. The fans chanted in unison. Again. Ye Chen. Ye Chen. Ye Chen. 3, 2, 1. Holla holla Ye Chen. Ye Chen. Ye Chen from China. The entire stadium, led by the announcer, erupted into a chant, the song of Ye Chen. You'd think the roof of Westfalenstadion was about to cave in. Up in the stands, Lowe stood and applauded. He thought, if only he played for Germany. He'd be our Peter Pan, star. Ferguson was more composed, but his trembling left hand and his ragged breathing betrayed his excitement. Alex, that was a hell of a goal. I know. Ferguson growled. I owe him an apology. He's a stone-cold killer on the pitch. Ferguson watched Ye Chen celebrate and muttered, we have to bring him back to Manchester United. Have to? If David Gill wasn't his longtime partner, Fergie might have decked him. Down on the sideline, Ye Chen sprinted to the south stand, grabbed the team badge on his chest, and kissed it passionately. Ye, stay. Ye, we love you. Ye, don't leave us. The fans near Ye Chen screamed, some of the girls even crying. Ye Chen hadn't been with Dortmund for long, but the connection was undeniable. He'd won them over with one incredible goal after another. In the crowd, Lena was in tears. Chen, you're my Superman. Back in the Penguin live stream, Jean June was still lamenting Dresden's park-the-bus strategy from a minute ago. Ye Chen's got the ball again, no hesitation, he's charging right at Salega. Is he going to blow past him? No. He cuts inside instead of going to the end line. Oh. Schultz is there. Schultz with the dangerous slide tackle. Jukes it. Ye Chen dodged it. Is that even possible for a Chinese player? He's so damn fast. Oh, Koch is coming in, and Bregel, too. This is ridiculous. 4 guys swarming Ye Chen. Seriously? Koch slides in. Wait, Ye Chen pulls the ball back, just barely avoiding Koch's tackle. Unbelievable reaction time. Oh, a thud echoed on TV, and Jean June roared, he shoots. The live stream froze for a split second. It's in. It's in. It's in. Jean June screamed. What a goal. Ye Chen unleashes a worldie that blasts through Dresden's defense. It's 1-0. At this moment, Ye Chen is like Shaoli Feidao, the flying dagger Li Xuanhuan. He only needs one shot to score. Ye Chen. He did it. Next to him, Jean-Lu kept making happy noises, grinning like a kid. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Dribbling to shooting, it's all one fluid motion. No wasted movement. I'm going to say it right now, he's the best finisher in China. Don't even compare him to other domestic players, he's just on another level. Jean-Lu rarely got so animated, but it showed just how excited he was. He'd waited so long for this moment, so long he'd forgotten the last Chinese player who could make that kind of play. Jean June chanted in a sing-song voice, a new generation of talent. Ye Chen is that talent. Staying up late to watch Ye Chen play is worth every second. Jean June then remembered to plug his sponsor, and remember, J, the international protection brand, reminds you to be safe and don't panic when you shoot. J helps you last longer, extend the pleasure, and add more fun. The Chinese fans in the chat were going wild. 66,666. When it comes to longevity, you can't beat the Chinese men's national team, lasting 90 minutes without a shot. Can you guys please not bring up depressing stuff when we're celebrating? Apologize to the comment above, the national team is a national disgrace. Jean June must have blocked the bullet comments again, because there's no way he'd let that go. What are you talking about? Are you sure we're even insulting them? I was so scared, I immediately took out my sea cucumber. The fans were ecstatic after the goal. Most importantly, it was only the 20th minute, so Dortmund should be able to cruise from here. The tension eased, but after celebrating, Ye Chen wore a serious expression. He used the super shot card, but what about the next 2 goals? That strike was pure instinct, but he'd used everything he'd been working on. First, the Robben-style cut inside, and second, the shot against his body momentum. Honestly, he'd just been trying to find his rhythm, and the feeling just came to him. But now he was in trouble. The game restarted, and Ye Chen pressed forward into their half again. Dortmund pressured their opponents hard, trying to control the tempo, but Ralf Roos, the Dresden coach, was already screaming, "What are you doing? Double-team him." Salega and Schultz snapped back to reality and renewed their double-team strategy. They blamed themselves for giving up that last goal, but the coach's words refocused them. He'd said before the game that conceding a goal was okay, since Ye Chen was just that good. But they couldn't let him score a second, because if he got 2, the third wouldn't be far behind. Their goal today wasn't to win, but to stop Ye Chen from breaking the record. After all, nobody wanted to be the victim when the record was broken. Take Masashi Nakayama's Guinness World Record for consecutive hat-tricks. It was a great achievement in 1998, but if you looked it up, his opponents were always mentioned, how many goals they allowed in each game. If Ye Chen really broke the record, people would always say, Ye Chen scored 3 goals in a row and completed a hat-trick in the 5th game against Dresden. Nobody wanted that. Not every team had the mental toughness to ignore the embarrassment.